Meet Hugh Baver. Hugh descends from Lithuanian Jews who came to the United States through Ellis Island in the late 18 and early 1900s. The son of Howard and Ruth Baver, Hugh was raised in a conservative Jewish household outside of Buffalo, New York, in a kosher home where his family observed Shabbat. He received a traditional Jewish American bar mitzvah. Ultimately growing up in idyllic New England, Baver loved baseball. He played baseball in high school. He played baseball in college. He even enjoyed a short stint playing as a professional baseball player for the Oakland A's organization. While that professional career may have been short-lived, Baver's love of baseball never waned. With Hugh returning to New England as an adult, it should come as no surprise that Baver loves the Boston Red Sox. He loves the Boston Red Sox so much that in 2010, Baver attended the Boston Red Sox fantasy camp in Fort Myers, Florida, where he played with the pros and was even named the Cy Young winner of the session. Not bad. Now, soon after attending the Fort Myers fantasy camp, Hugh Baver just happened to have planned a vacation to the beautiful Dominican Republic. And while there, of course, he took the opportunity to visit the Red Sox Dominican Republic Baseball Academy on the south coast of the island. While on this trip, something completely unconnected to baseball caught his attention. Hugh heard rumblings that the Dominican Republic had willingly accepted Jews fleeing Nazi persecution. Hugh did not act on that nugget yet, but baseball would bring Baver back to this astonishing story. So let's fast forward to 2013. The Dominican Republic sends its national team to the World Baseball Classic, which has taken the place of the Olympics for baseball since the Olympic organization dropped the sport. The Dominican team played a tremendous tournament, going undefeated in 8 games and winning the entire event. So given Hugh's affinity for both baseball and the Dominican Republic,
as a result of going to the DR winning the World Baseball Classic, I actually, as a collector, baseball collector, former player, was able to purchase the game-used first base from the World Baseball Classic championship game. And it happened, it arrived to me on the day of the Boston Marathon bombing. And everyone was saying to themselves, geez, what can we do? And I just had this notion that I just wanted to do something, wanted to help. So playing formally with the Red Sox as well, I called up the Red Sox and said, hey, I have this base. It's something that has a lot of notoriety in the DR. I'd like to give it to the country and specifically give it to the Red Sox. So they said, sure, absolutely, Hugh, come on in. And they arranged for a day at Fenway Park where I got to meet Big Papi. By the end of him understanding what the notoriety of this gift, which is kind of like he said, like the Declaration of Independence for their country, it's this serious historic item. We had this little ceremony. And so that's where, so he actually signed the base.
Hugh decided to pay homage to the larger Dominican communities in New England. He took the base to Lawrence, Massachusetts, where he met with some serious baseball fans. He visited the Dominican American mayor of Providence, Rhode Island, Angel Tavares. He went to the stadiums of the 3 Boston Red Sox minor league teams in New England. After that tour around New England, Hugh traveled with the well-protected base back to the Dominican Republic. And talk about a trip.
I flew it over to the Dominican Republic on JetBlue.
Who rolled out the red carpet during the transport of that fine first base. And when Hugh delivered the actual base to the Red Sox Baseball Academy on the island, he had the opportunity to meet even more baseball giants from the Red Sox organization who hailed from the Dominican Republic.
But anyway, so here's the base. I was able to put it together, and this is in Jesus Alou's office. And Jesus Alou, who's a very famous player from years ago, one of the Dominican godfathers of baseball. There's Pedro Martinez. I could have just died after this day just to be able to meet Pedro.
Yet in the midst of Hugh meeting his baseball heroes, he heard rumblings yet again of the Dominican Republic's heroic actions in the wake of the horrors of the Holocaust, and thus began an extraordinary journey for Hugh Baver.
This is a passion that just came out of, once it came out of nowhere, it developed out of a baseball Odyssey with the Red Sox and the fantasy camp that turned into someone saying, hey, there's a town up in the Dominican Republic called Sosua that has Jewish origins. And I'm like, really? And from there, I did a lot of investigation and I found out a lot more about this very little known story about the Holocaust.
Yes, when it comes to shining a light on the Dominican Republic's efforts during the Second World War, Hugh Baver hit a grand slam home run. Let's go back to July of 1938. By this time, Nazi persecution of its German Jewish population had been on full display for years. The world could no longer deny the oppression of Germany's Jews. As a result, 32 nations sent representatives to what would become known as the Evian Conference in Evian, France. Hugh Baver actually made a pilgrimage to Evian to visit the very hotel where the conference was held, and had the opportunity to hold the actual guest registry from July 1938, which includes the names of all of the delegates to this historic event.
Here we are in July. These are all of the conference attendees of the Evian Conference.
So at the Evian Conference,
the question was, who will be willing, what country will be willing to take in the Jews? So after, it was 8 or 9 days of debate on the subject, the only country at that conference that agreed to allow the Jews in to immigrate was the Dominican Republic.
Rafael Trujillo was the only world leader to agree to accept Jewish people who could leave from Germany and Austria.
You heard correctly. Out of 32 nations, including Argentina, Australia, Brazil, Canada, Mexico, Switzerland, the United Kingdom, and even the United States, only the Dominican Republic agreed to accept Jews fleeing the horrors of Adolf Hitler. And Dominican President Rafael Trujillo's plan to accept these German and Austrian refugees was incredibly ambitious.
Not only did they allow them to come in, they offered this on very liberal terms of up to 100,000 Jewish refugees, and also would give them land, 26,000 acres on the north coast of the island. Ultimately, only 700 made it, and the reason why is that all the shipping lanes closed down and all of the provisions that were made for them to come into the country pretty much, dried up.
There was one catch for these European Jews that wished to settle on the idyllic north coast community of Sosua.
But again, they had to come into the provision that they're going from businessmen. They could not be businessmen in the classic sense, accountants, lawyers, doctors. They had to become agricultural. They had to become farmers.
And the German-Jewish Kirschheimer family jumped at the opportunity to leave Hamburg, Germany, and start a new life as farmers in the Dominican Republic. And Hugh Baver recently traveled to the Dominican North Coast to talk to Rene Kirschheimer, actually born in Sosua in 1942, about his family's life in that community.
I grew up on a farm about 5 miles outside of town, and I grew up in a very basic environment, old nature. My father had a dairy farm. He also had raising pigs. Happiness, the land here was not fertile enough for really agricultural projects, even though they attempted it and they had some results. But then they said, well, I think this is better just plant pastures and raise cows.
Through the establishment of a successful dairy cooperative, the Jewish refugees ultimately played a large role in the growth and the economic development of this island country.
Now, when you consider that 1.5 million European Jewish children were murdered during the Shoah, it's hard not to be moved by René's delightful description of his childhood in Sosua.
We had a perfect childhood here. All the children descendants from the refugees that came during World War II. They formed a school here. Also, it was not only a school for the descendants of the refugees. We also had Dominican natives.
And these Jewish children living in Sosua were not forced to face the pernicious persecution that they would have suffered if they had stayed in Europe. To the contrary,
we went to high school in Puerto Plata, and they had religious Catholic class, religious things, and we didn't go. And they would say, "Hey Jews, how are you?" But not with any malice or anything like that.
And these Jewish families living in the Dominican Republic were able to create functioning institutions in order to live full Jewish lives.
But this is a special place here in Sosua. This is actually where the original synagogue is established.
When they all came first, what they did was they built barracks with just beds in them, And they used one, then they had one left over, and then they made the synagogue out of that, and that's still there.
René Kirschheimer even became a bar mitzvah in Sosua.
I learned all the prayers you have to say for bar mitzvah.
1.5 million Jewish children never had the opportunity to become B'nai Mitzvah, but thanks to the willingness of a small Caribbean nation, a few Jewish children became B'nai Mitzvah in a small town on the north coast of the Dominican Republic. Stated otherwise, 700 souls that likely would have perished in Europe survived in the Dominican Republic.
The Sosua story is worth telling because it's not a myth. It's a reality that looks like a myth, but it isn't a myth.
The fact that the Jews were welcomed into the Dominican Republic and really was a safe haven for them is something that we should all commemorate and remember.
Today, the city of Sosua is paying tribute to its Jewish roots by, for example, including a Jewish star in its official seal. The city has developed a park to honor the Jewish refugees who helped to grow what has become a thriving community on the Dominican North Shore. The Sosua Synagogue remains operational, with its accompanying museum actively telling the story of Sosua's Jewish settlers. And Hugh Baver, yes, Hugh Baver is determined, is dedicated to ensure that the world remembers this story, that this story does not get lost to history.
So Sosua 75 is a nonprofit organization committed to not just remembering a week-long celebration or a weekend celebration of the 75th anniversary, but to create a long-standing remembrance of the heritage of the area.
Who knew that a love for baseball would lead Hugh Baver to make it his life's mission to tell the world about a small Caribbean country that saved the lives of 700 European Jews? And Hugh's ultimate goal? To develop and construct an inclusive Jewish Dominican cultural educational center in Sosua. If you would like to learn more about Sosua 75, you can sign on to Sosua75.org.